Hare Krishna. Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse number 40. Indriyani manobuddhir asyadhishthanamuchyate eter vimohayati esa jnanam avritya dehinam. Indriyani manobuddhir asyadhishthanamuchyate ऐतैर्विमोहयत्येषा ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम् इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धेरस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते ऐतैर्विमोहयत्येषा ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम्. Indriyani, the senses, manah, the mind, buddhi, the intelligence, asya, of this lust, adhishthanam, sitting place, uchyate, is called etehe, by all this, vimohyati, bewilders, eshaha, this lust, jnanam, knowledge, avritya, covering, dehinam, of the embodied. The senses, the mind and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about the sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of the sense gratification, and as a result the mind and the senses become repositories of the lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lust intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyatma buddhihe kunape tridhatuke swadhihe kalatradishu homa ijjadihe yattirtha buddhihi salile na karhi ched jnaneshva vigneshu swa eva gokharaha. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Hare Krishna. So, in this series of verses, beginning from the verse number 36, so from 30 to 35, the series, the Lord was instructing about work. How does the work is required to be performed? Adhyatmanishchah, Nirashi, Nirmamo, or Vigata Jwaraha. So this is how one should perform the work, being in Krishna conscious, remaining unattached to the fruits of activities, considering nothing to be mine, and lastly, Vigata Jura, giving up this feverish mentality of lethargy. Now, in this series, after the verse number 36, Arjuna asked the questions that what is that force by which an individual is forced to act as if helplessly in the sinful acts. So then Lord Krishna is replying that it is lust which is born of the contact with the material mode of passion. How is the lust born? Lust born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world, not just human being, and then this world. So then we saw that later on, then Lord says that there are different degrees of lust. First there is lust, which is born of mode of passion, and then there is degrees of lust. Degrees of lust in the verse number 38, and then in verse number 39, characteristics of lust. Never satisfied. Characteristics of lust, that it is never satisfied and it burns like fire. And in the verse number 40, which we are reading today, we know the sitting places of this lust. Strategic positions. Sitting places of lust, or the strategic positions occupied by the lust. So Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully starts the purport by saying that these are the different places the enemy has occupied or captured, and if one wants to defeat the enemy, then Lord Krishna is giving a hint to an individual, to every one of us. Those who want to conquer the enemy know where he can be found. One who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Hare Krishna. Yes. So now we know the three strategic positions which have been occupied by lust are senses, mind, and intelligence. So mind is what? Mind is the center of all the activities, and it is reservoir of all ideas, and also it is repository of lust. So through senses, an individual takes all the input. And where are these inputs stored? These inputs are stored in our mind. So when individual hears about sense objects, takes input about sense objects through eyes, through ears, through nose, or through sense of touch, then the mind which is there, physically we say that this is brain, this is supposed to be mind, but it's not. It's a software, it's not like hardware. We can exactly locate the where the mind is. So for instance, we say it's like to be here. So the mind is the repository of all the knowledge, all inputs which are obtained, they are sent to mind. Mind stores it and keeps them, and then one gets various ideas, mind through mind. So it is because mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and when the sense objects they get an input about this sense enjoyment, they send it to mind. Mind stores it, and when in the future, when the situation comes, when individual has those facility, then immediately mind says yes, we can enjoy like this, and then the individual, the intelligence says yes or no. If one has conquered or one has a strong intelligence, then one can say no to these urges of the mind and the senses. But if our intelligence is not strong, then we are swayed by the current of these desires and the ideas deposited in our mind and the demand of the senses. So that's how it is. So now mind is also the next door neighbor of intelligence, and this mind, so the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities, because then one devises ways and means. Mind gives the ideas and intelligence works in that direction. how to satisfy, gratify one's senses in newer and newer ways, and accordingly it directs the mind to satisfy those desires. So the intelligence becomes the capital of such lustful propensities, and when the intelligence is covered, the intelligence is immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. So this lusty intelligence, it influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with the matter that I am this body and I want to enjoy. So the individual identify itself with this matter, this body, this mind and our senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. So we become addicted to enjoying worldly things, material things, with the material vision, enjoying everything with material vision, and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13, which we read. That individual who considers the byproducts, who identifies with the body and who considers the byproduct of his body to be his kinsman, land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage only to take path rather than hear from the transcendental person, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Very strong words used in Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Shukdev Goswami Maharaj. So when the mind senses, they are dead, they do not have anything by themselves. As such, mind is also a material object, but senses, they take input and they give it to mind. Mind becomes the repository has lot of ideas, and the intelligence, when it becomes lusty, when it wants to enjoy, then the spirit soul is like totally identifying with the matter and with the mind and the senses, and there is no hope. And such a person, he enjoys the material senses and makes this as true happiness. Such a person, even if he comes to a spiritual place, because he has this material vision, he will see things from material point of view, and he will not be able to appreciate the spiritual aspect of it. Such a person, they may go to holy places also, but they go to holy places not to hear this transcendental message of Krishna consciousness, but to do their karma kanda or some other activities so that they can enjoy. So such a person may be a religious person, maybe non-religious person, maybe atheist, maybe non-atheist, or demigod worshipper, but his consciousness is that of enjoying the matter, identifying fully himself with this body, the mind and the senses. If we are on that platform, we are actually on that platform right now. Though we are trying to understand, when we try to read Bhagavad Gita, that we are not this body. Theoretically we know this, that we are not this body, we are something higher than this body. We are not this mind and we are not the senses also. But this understanding, this realization, it needs regular practice of Krishna consciousness, chanting of holy name, regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam daily, associating with devotees, serving their lordships. So when we do this association, book reading, chanting and devotional activities, then we gradually will come to the platform where we will begin to understand that we are not this body. We are in a spirit soul, something higher from this body. So this is what we are supposed to do, and this is the process of Krishna consciousness by which we can purify our intelligence, control our mind and our senses, and go back home, back to Godhead. So it is the duty of every intelligent human being, in fact every spirit soul, to understand this message of Krishna consciousness and to purify their existence, purify themselves from identification with this false ego, with this body, mind, and these senses. And this can be done through various other processes, but in the Kali Yuga, the easiest of all the process is chanting of the holy names of the Lord, primary of which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This chanting can be done in the form of japa, and it can also be done in the form of Harinam Sankirtan when we come with devotees, chant and dance and have this Sankirtan. This is the easiest process to purify our existence in this present age of Kali, which is full of contamination and degradation. So let us all chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.